Hello and welcome to What Keeps You Awake.tv. I'm your host, David Hooser, and I'm expeditiously welcoming our guest, attorney Stephen Jacobs.
Hi, David.
Guess I get a little frugal when I am around legal-minded, bill-by-the-hour folks like Stephen. The good news is I have it on good authority. Stephen knows how to handle us risk-on entrepreneurial types. So let's get started with our foundational questions for you, Stephen. As it relates to small and medium-sized business clients, what keeps you awake late at night?
Wow, David, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
To answer your question, they're not so different from the big clients, except they don't have the same number of reps. The dirty secret a lot of lawyers won't tell you is a lot of law is trial and error. Something went a little wrong one time, you get it better the next time, you tweak your processes, you do it over and over, it gets better and better. So at a big business with a team of lawyers, they have a zillion reps and things are going to be more fine-tuned.
Gotcha.
Small
More
businesses,
eyeballs.
it might be the first time they're doing anything, any given time they do it. So buttoning up all the holes is really the thing that keeps me up at night.
So working on single issues that maybe you've never addressed before in the past with medium or large corporate clients, you've probably dealt with some of their issues in the past, or you have more eyeballs to take a look at your
Exactly.
complaints.
And they have their records all together and they have their processes and systems together.
Yep.
Where with smaller, medium businesses, every given step in the process of representation can be an adventure.
An exploration,
Exactly.
so to speak. Well, so I mean, it sounds challenging, exciting as a practicing attorney, but why take on all these sleepless nights?
Well, the answer is basically the same as the reason that causes the sleepless nights.
Okay.
Every day is a new challenge, something exciting to do, something new to do.
Okay.
When you work on the same processes every day, you become really good and it becomes a squeak-free machine, but it can be boring.
A little mundane.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, I mean, obviously, the smaller the business, the fewer internal resources, the more need to find good, external partners like, yourself in this case. What are some of the common issues that, what would you say? Things like employee and tax or employee and labor law compliance?
Certainly there's HR issues that at larger shops, again, they've done it a million times. They have their hiring and firing down. There might be brand new employees at a small and medium business. They might have never been through some cycles before.
Orientation, employee orientation, or handbook
Training,
review, and
making sure they have all the appropriate training, regulatory compliance related to training, just having the whole process down. Contracts are a whole separate issue, but there's contracts with employees and then contracts with other businesses and suppliers and making sure they are all buttoned up.
Yeah, everything is, and contracts are getting to be, longer and longer. I mean, now just a simple vendor contract's 50 pages sometimes. It's certainly leases, things like that.
And one of the things we lawyers teach is in contracts, you should know and understand the purpose of every single clause. So that's why you have these sophisticated deal attorneys that get paid the big bucks that can make these 300-page contracts. But you really do need to know why each and everything is in there so you can make sure to negotiate it properly for your client.
It's kind of like they say in a restaurant, if it's served on your plate, it's edible. If it's in your contract, it's applicable.
And it means something.
It means
That's
something.
right.
Right. So you need to understand it. And so if you're not expert, in law, you should make sure you align yourself, your small business, with a good partner in that category.
Definitely. And it's sometimes hard, maybe this is self-serving as a lawyer to say this, but it's sometimes hard for small businesses that are just getting started with limited revenue to see the value in what they might view as a cost center
Right.
of legal, but it can save you a whole host of headaches down the line. For example, to have no loopholes in your contract so that when someone doesn't pay you the big amount you're expecting in 1 year, you have an actual claim as opposed to some loophole that will
Well,
eviscerate whatever
negate
you
your
have.
receivable. Yeah, which can kill your company if depending on the size of the receivable.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be. I mean, some in the big law world, they refer to it as bet the company litigation, which for the big
Okay.
blue chip clients, that could be $1 billion litigation. But for
Right.
a small or medium business, bet the company litigation could be several hundred
That's
thousand.
it. But that's everything to the small business owner. Okay. One other thing. So we talked a little bit about employee and the importance of having the infrastructure to bring on employees. How does that apply also to contractors? A lot of gig workers now.
Yeah, and you want to make sure when you do that, you're not running afoul of any employment laws, which I'm not an employment lawyer, but what I do know is there's federal law, there's state law,
Right.
there's local law, and it can all be a little different depending upon the exact city you're in. So if you're in Las Vegas versus if you're in New York, there's going to be different rules
Right.
for what you need to do, different types of contracts you need to
Right.
sign, and having that all in order will save you a host of headaches down the
Down
line.
the line. When an issue, you contract for the worst case scenario. You hope for the best, but you plan for the worst case.
Exactly. Everyone hopes they never have to pull out the contract
Right.
again.
And a lot of changes with the new administration, right? With the quote unquote elimination of DEI, that has impacts to small business.
Certainly, everything, when there's an administration change, a lot of regulations can change immediately. There can
Yeah.
be executive orders, Congress can act quickly. And staying up to date on these changes to advise your small and medium business clients, for example, a labor lawyer, employment lawyer, is a
Right.
very important step for them to take. Yeah.
Partner to have. Okay. And then, so we talked about contract management. Therefore, regardless of whether it's employment or supplier based contracting, client based contracting, make sure you do it. Make sure you have a contract that doesn't have tons of loopholes that are going to ultimately cost you more, either because you can't enforce it or because it costs so much to enforce it.
Yeah, and it can be the smallest thing that makes a contract unenforceable.
Yeah, right. And then let's talk a little bit about intellectual property, because that's the ultimate value of most businesses, right? Some are just, you know, you know, commodity based services that they offer, but a lot of times what we're doing, we're applying something very unique that defines what our company offering is. How do you protect that?
Yeah, so if you have trademarks, you need to make sure that they
Okay.
are properly registered and protected. Um, Copyrights, same thing. I'm not a patent lawyer, but I know that a single patent can be at the heart of a business, and that's an expensive process to get a
Right.
patent, but necessary to avoid knockoffs. And then there's the flip side of it, which is a lot of times small or medium-sized businesses, they'll be trying to do something quickly on their web page, and they'll pull pictures or
Pull it.
content from somewhere else on the web, and then you have others coming after you for using their
For
copyrights.
infringement
And
of,
if the business ends up being ultimately successful, it's just going to attract more of these copyright.
right.
Some call them copyright trolls.
Right. So don't just use a source of content that you have permission. As simple as something as simple as that could create headaches for you down the road.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
there are people always looking to go after the businesses that are successful. And of course, if you're not successful, no one's probably going to go after you.
Yeah,
But
so it doesn't matter, but that's not the reason you're in business.
yeah,
You're in business for success, so plan for it, right?
exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. What about, so we talked about copyright infringement. What about regulatory compliance in general. I mean, there's so many regulations. Hopefully, again, this administration lightens the load a little bit on small businesses. But I mean, how important is that? I mean, does the FTC really care about small business operators? The FCC, right now, big in the thoughts and the thought cycles of all business owners, operators is AI. I mean, how does that impact, from a regulatory standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, regulatory compliance, as you may expect me to say, is extremely important.
I figured it
And
was coming.
it's for some of the same reasons we just discussed, which is I think the inclination that like, well, these federal agencies aren't going to be interested in my 3-person business. That might be true to the extent it's not successful, but like you just said, you need to plan for success. And once you start to make it, well, then there's going to be a look back, and there's going to be long statutes of limitations on
Okay.
any potential issue. So you do become big and you do become successful, and then suddenly an agency wants to see, well, did you file the appropriate forms? Are you doing your taxes correctly? Depending upon your industry, did you register with the appropriate agencies? And if you didn't, there can be big fines. They can shut you down.
Well, and there's a sector of your industry that looks for these kind of things that, what is it? Mass arbitration, mass, class action
Yeah, well,
suits.
depending upon if it's funny with mass arbs, it used to be that every business wanted to have an arbitration clause in their contracts to discourage group class action lawsuits. But then the lawyers got smart and they started bringing mass arbs, which is hundreds or thousands of arbitrations, each one on behalf of an individual customer. And there was a realization that that can actually be more expensive for the company to defend.
That's right, because now you got 1,000 of them, 10,000, 100,000 versus one class action.
Exactly. So avoiding liability to begin with is really the name of the game, to avoid either class actions or mass arbs against you.
Keep yourself protected from the beginning. Yeah. So, and then let's talk about that. What you mentioned statute of limitations. What are some common look back periods that are kind of known or?
Well, as an example, I mean, the most common lawsuits in business are probably breach of contract lawsuits.
Okay.
And
with your clients, with your customers?
Customers, vendors, suppliers. It could be with anyone. And those are long statutes of limitations, or employees. Long statutes of limitations. In New York, for example, they're 6 years. In other states, 4 or 5.
Okay.
Sometimes 3 on the low end. But it's going to be a long number of years. When you have 6, you can hardly remember. I don't remember much from 6 years ago, but you can be sued on a contract from 6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to remember every incident that ever happened with an employee. You got 6 years is a long time. A lot of things happen in your business.
There's data preservation issues too. There's going to be an expectation that the business retains records over some period of time, often even longer than 6 years.
Yeah.
So.
And that brings up a good point with one of our sponsors. We show on our logo here, protected by MBPS. So their job is to protect our data, protect our network, make sure that our equipment is not being hacked, protect the information on our equipment, on our servers, on our cloud. So those showing that you're doing that, because it's still, there's hackers out there that's all they do every day when they wake up. That's their job. They're gonna, you've got to protect your data all the time. They've just got to find a way in once,
Exactly. And the bigger the company gets, the more phishing there's going to be.
Yeah.
So having a partner like that could be very important.
And at least it shows if something does happen, you weren't just leaving it out there for someone to grab. You had a third-party organization like MBPS working to protect your data, not just I had it on all my employees' laptops. They had a little piece of my client data and some of it got breached.
Totally. And a data breach for a company, especially a small or medium-sized business, can be can lead to sort of disastrous consequences, because even if there's no actual damage done,
Right.
well, there's statutes regarding data breaches that require companies to take certain steps if
Got
certain data is breached. And it's different across all 50 states. And sometimes there's notification obligations if you have customers in all 50
Right.
states, where you have to do certain notifications in all 50 states. So that legal process
Is an
is
expense
onerous.
unto itself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you might have to reply or notify, communicate to your clients uniquely 50 different ways.
50 different ways. And perhaps even the AGs of 50 different states, depending upon what the breach is.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of notification.
Important. So it's very expensive to not protect your data when it, happens to, experience a breach.
Yeah, and that's especially true if there's confidential client data in there, financial information, medical information,
Got it.
or the like.
And doing those things does help your position, right? I mean, if you're not taking specific steps to protect your information, your client or employee type information, if you're not doing it, you're exposed. You're most likely going to have a hard time defending, yourself in a legal situation.
Certainly at some point or another, you're going to have a harder time explaining what happened to the relevant authorities.
Got it. Any other kind of golden nuggets or rules of thumb that you would leave our audience with?
I guess I'll go back to where I started, which is we lawyers are well aware that small businesses see us as a cost, and often a cost that can be pushed down the line. And while that's true to an extent, I would certainly urge everybody on the important things, some of the issues we've hit in this discussion, consult with legal counsel, and it will be worth it, and it will pay itself back down the line.
Got it. It's a cost worth taking on, and ensuring your future is bright, right? That's the whole point. Sleepless nights are minimized if you do things up front to protect you.
Exactly.
All right. Well, good. Well, that's it. We appreciate you joining us, Stephen. And you guys out there, if you have any legal questions, let us know. We'll pass them on to one of our partners here. And then also remember to like, follow, or subscribe to whatkeepsyouawake.tv. And we'll see you on a future episode.